Hello, everyone, and welcome. I see everyone rolling in here. That's awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today for Keys to Home Buying, brought to you by the CSU Alumni Association and sponsored by Canvas Credit Union. My name is Sophie, and I work at the CSU Alumni Association. I'm also a proud alumna of CSU from the class of 2022, and I'm excited to join you in learning from our guest presenter and fellow alum, Doug Patmore, on the key concepts of home buying. Before I officially introduce Doug, I do want to go over some quick housekeeping rules for you. We're running this event via YouTube, as you can tell, and we would love for you to ask questions or to comment on the material as we go. If you have a question or comment, go ahead and use the comment section down either below your video or to the right side of your screen, depending on which form of YouTube you have. You should be able to post comments regardless of if you are logged into a YouTube or a Google account. But if you are not able to, please email me your question and I can post it for everyone. I'm going to go ahead and put my email in the comments. Last but certainly not least, I'd like to thank our CSU Alumni Association members who are tuning in today. Your support through membership makes connective and educational programs like this possible. Thank you. And now I'm officially going to hand things off to Doug, our guest presenter, to get us started.
Awesome. Sophie, thank you so much. You guys do such an excellent job of getting people together for these kind of events. We really do appreciate it. And I want to thank everybody for joining today. It sounds like we have a pretty decent crowd. So thanks for taking just a little bit of time out of your day. Obviously, talking about home buying is a big deal. And I think that the fact that there's this many people tuned in today speaks to the fact that it can be a little intimidating. I totally understand that. And my goal today is to help talk through a few things so that you all just feel a little bit more comfortable with the process and feel that home buying is within reach, because it is. And I've got some good information and some stories to share that hopefully impart that to you. And so full disclosure, I have actually been in one of these exact type talks before on the other end of it, right? And I came away so confused and overwhelmed that I was like, okay, if I'm having this conversation today, I want to keep it very high level, which is what we're going to do. And so if you have questions, please just throw them in the chat. We'll address those, but we're going to keep it pretty simple. I'm curious to know where people might be from. If you're comfortable with that, maybe toss where you're from in the chat. I would imagine there's probably a large Colorado contingent. Some of the things we'll talk about today are Colorado specific, but conceptually work anywhere. So just as a heads up, we'll go over a few of those things. So let me go to my next slide here if I can figure out where my mouse is. There it is. Okay, so just a little bit about me. I have had my real estate license since 2022. I moved to Colorado in 2008 to work at Colorado State University, as a matter of fact. And so lots of love for the university and everything they do to support people like you and me. Member of the Alumni Association, and I bought a home in 2015 here in Fort Collins. At that time, it was a crazy time to buy. I probably lost out on, I'd say, 12 houses that I wanted to write an offer on. It was just a crazy process, but it taught me so much and really inspired me to want to get my license and work with people like you out there. So anyway, yeah, I've got some good experience and hopefully can shed some light on processes and things like that. Like I said, I want to keep this very high level and just make you feel a little bit more comfortable about the process in general. So really, there are three main categories of things that I wanted to talk about today. First thing, numbers. Everyone's favorite. Everybody loves to go over numbers, right? It's kind of like going to the doctor's office. It's easier just to avoid. But I'm here to tell you that it's worthwhile to know a few different things that really put you in a good position when you start to think about buying a home. First, though, a couple common assumptions. And now these are assumptions that I had. And as I work with first-time home buyers, I often see this come top of mind. You need to have perfect credit, a ton of cash, a high-paying job, or you need to be a full-on expert in home buying. None of these things are true at all. And frankly, again, the reason I bring these up is because these were some of the assumptions I had. So I think that we can put some of these to rest for you here today. And we'll start with numbers and things that you can control. It's not really too beneficial to think about things that you just can't do anything about. So first thing that I'm going to talk about is credit score. So I wonder how many, like, what percentage of people on this call do you think are tuned in to their credit score? Hard to say. Some people are really good about it. Some people aren't. I generally know what mine is, but I don't for sure at all times. But the Federal Trade Commission in the United States has a website that makes it incredibly easy to check your credit score and also to sign up for alerts to let you know if things change with your credit. And so I'm actually going to drop a few links in the chat that are really, really helpful. If you aren't familiar with getting a credit score and how to do it, this will allow you to, I think, if I can get in. Well, we will figure out how to make sure you can get these links. I don't want to hold it up, but I will provide a few links that allow you to check your credit score. It's free. And there's actually just one site that you want to make sure that you're on that allows you to do it, that's connected to the government site. So anyway, with credit scores, there are different tiers, right? So you can have fair credit, good credit, very good credit, or if you have like an 800 and above, you have otherworldly credit, and you might not be human. And so some people fall sort of within there somewhere. And what I would say is you need essentially fair credit. So 580 plus gets you in a great position to work with a lender to get a home loan. So this myth that you need excellent credit is not necessarily true. Obviously, the better your credit, the better. One of the things that I really highly recommend people do, and you can do this starting today, is to think about your credit utilization percentage. You'll see that there. If you can keep it under 30%, that's excellent. And really what that is however much credit you have. Say you have, a $15,000 credit card limit here and another one here. So you have $30,000 in your credit limit. Keeping that to or under 30% makes a huge difference on your credit score. So take a look at those things if you can, and just see if you can manipulate it, start paying things down to get that credit utilization under 30%. Huge difference. So that's one of the more practical things that I think makes sense. Auto payments, things like that really do affect your credit score. And there are things that you can do today to really help make it easy to boost that credit score, and it'll help you along the way. Let's see here. Yep. So here's the other number that I think that you should all pay attention to: debt to income ratio. You might have already worked with a lender at some point. And this is one of the numbers that they look at and pay really strict attention to. And it's what it sounds like. It's basically how much income do you have coming in each month versus and relative to the amount of debt and overhead that you're paying. So the things that are included as far as debt, things like housing. So rent, loan payments, your auto loan, your student loan, credit card payments, all those things are a part of what they consider your debt monthly. Certain things aren't considered. So utilities, groceries, gas, auto insurance, things like that. The lenders don't look at that stuff. So one of the things you might do is kind of try to, think about and get a good sense of where your money goes every month, and know that some things you can spend on, and it's not going to affect the way that a lender looks at you as far as being a good candidate for a home loan. And then the other thing, let me go back. The other thing is to check in on ways to consolidate debt. So I don't know, you might have, and I've had to do this before, credit card loans, things like that, credit card debt that's maybe a little bit higher interest, things like that. You can consolidate debt in certain ways, and it might result in a lower monthly payment. Your debt to income ratio just got a lot better. So I don't know, it might make sense for some people, but it's one really practical thing that you can do and pay attention to that might really help. So I'd encourage you to explore some of that. The third number that you're going to control when it comes to home buying is your down payment. So kind of freaky to think about 20% in a down payment, right? For instance, in Fort Collins right now, the median cost for a townhome is around $416,000. It's a lot. 20% of that is around $83,000. I don't have $83,000 cash. If you do, then I'd like to come work for you. So it's a crazy number to think about, right? But 20% isn't gospels. If you have it, great. If not, there are a lot of different things that you can do. So FHA loans, we'll talk about these in a minute, but basically with as little as 3.5% down, you can go under contract and buy a home. 3.5% of that townhome number in Fort Collins is 14,500 something dollars. So it's a lot of money, but it's not $83,000. So keep that in mind. There are a few different things that you can do between conventional loans, FHA, or even VA. If you're a veteran and you qualify, you can buy a home for 0% down. I've helped people do it. It's amazing. And so just know that if you don't have a lot of cash on hand, it doesn't disqualify you from being a homeowner. So that's good news. The number one thing I would tell you is when it comes to your numbers, talk to a mortgage lender. This is kind of a freaky step for people. It was for me. I was like, oh, I have to go talk to this person and give them all my personal information and they're going to lock me into something. No. When you go talk to a mortgage lender, you're never under any obligation to work with them. It's just a conversation. They'll take your information. They'll ask you a lot of really good questions, and they will help you understand where are you in terms of trying to get a loan. And if they don't say, then you're ready to go, they'll at least tell you, here are the steps you can take very practically to get you in a great position to buy. So what I would also recommend, you can always go online to like Rocket Mortgage, Zillow Home Loans, things like that. I don't recommend that necessarily. I think it's more important if you find someone locally that you can sit down with, jump on a Zoom call, just have a personal connection with. It makes a really big difference. Those people take a lot of personal time and attention to make sure that they know you and your situation. So anyway, as it relates to the numbers, keep in mind that there's people out there, mortgage lenders that are experts, and they're there to help you out. So the other thing that I remember being incredibly intimidated by when it came to buying a home was I just didn't understand the process. I was like, I felt overwhelmed immediately, right? So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about some of the process that and keep it at a very high level. Honestly, there's about 6 steps, and that seems maybe a little bit too simple, but really, like I mentioned earlier, the best place to start is talking to a lender. I always recommend if I have someone that wants to go see a home, have you talk to a lender. If they haven't, I try to get that done as quickly as possible, just so that they have a clear idea and we have a clear idea of what they're qualified for and what we should be looking at. They're going to gather a lot of info. They're going to ask really good questions. And it doesn't take long. Seriously, like you could probably have a 30-minute conversation with a lender and be well on your way to understanding kind of where you are in the process. Once you talk to a lender, talk with a realtor, someone like me who understands the local real estate market. Armed with the information you have from your lender, you can say, okay, what are the things most important to you in a house? It could be having a backyard that your dog can run around in, having a home office, things like that, whatever it might be. Now your realtor can go and say, okay, based on that, here's some great options I think we should go take a look at. And you have the fun part, right? You get to go look at homes. So that's always great. A great place to start with that is Zillow. Everybody goes to Zillow, right? You can look up a lot of realtors that way, get a good idea of how experienced they are, things like that. So it's a great tool. Use Zillow, use whatever. If you see someone on a bus stop sign and want to call them, do it. There's a lot of great professionals, especially here in Northern Colorado. So you're connected with a realtor, you're connected with a lender. The next step is, going to look at homes. You find a home and you think this checks every box. I want to write an offer on it. Your realtor and your lender are going to work with you to come up with the exact terms that make sense for you. And you're going to submit that offer to the seller, and the seller loves it. And you go under contract to buy a home. That is going to be kind of scary probably. Because then I personally remember thinking like, oh my gosh, like I'm committed to this now for the rest of my life. This is going to be insane. And that's not true. So you write an offer on a home that you want to buy, you generally have about 30 days. And there's a lot that happens in that 30 days. One of those things is the inspection. When you go to buy a home, you have an inspection performed on it. And if there is something critically wrong with the home, you can get out of the deal. So there's a lot of ways that, whether it's lending terms, finding the right insurance, figuring out if the home is suitable and in good shape, you can get out of a transaction essentially scot-free if any of those things happen. Lots of protection for buyers out there. So there's a lot of moving parts as you go through that 30 or 45 days. It's a little stressful, and it should be probably. I'd never met anybody who wasn't a little stressed during that period of time, but it's exciting too. And you get to the point where you go to a closing, you sit at a table, you sign a stack of papers about that big, mostly related to your loan, and they hand you keys to a house. And it is one of the most rewarding and fun parts of my job is to see people get to that point. It's awesome. And again, it's absolutely within reach for you. So really, those are the steps. It can go pretty quick, but you have people around you that are going to help and make sure you don't feel too overwhelmed. Leading to this point, there's really no reason to stress throughout this process because there are experts all around you. Your lender and your realtor are going to be able to tell you everything you need to know, answer every question you have, and make sure that you're not, doing anything that's going to put you in a compromised situation. So don't feel too overwhelmed because there's people that are going to be on your team that are going to help you out. You're protected. About 25% of deals will fall out of contract. A lot of times it's because of the inspection, the home, there's something wrong with it. And again, as a buyer, you're protected. So never feel like once you're committed, there's no way out. So the other thing related to that 30 or 45 day timeline, most people are renters, right? And so you might worry about, well, my lease is ending, so I need to time it perfectly. Not necessarily. Honestly, I worked with a lot of people who are renting. They buy a house and there's some overlap on their rental and the home they buy. There are ways to mitigate that. So just work with your realtor and don't think too much about having to perfectly time rent versus buy. A few other things I'd mention really quick. Out of pocket. So people, I think, worry about like, okay, how much does it cost to go through this process? Honestly, not much out of pocket up front. And so when you go under contract on a home, you're going to have to perform that inspection. That's an out-of-pocket cost of maybe around $450. Outside of that, costs are really going to be calculated. There's going to be a lot of things at closing, and that's what we call cash to close. You're going to know all of that kind of up front as things pop through. So don't feel like you're going to get caught off guard and that it takes a ton of money up front when you start writing contracts and things like that.
We do have a couple
Yeah,
questions in the
of
chat
course.
too, so I just wanted to make sure we've got a couple of them in there. So this is the first one, and I'll pop up the other ones once you answer that one.
Yeah, thank you so much. So chatting with an accountant to look at tax issues and going through this process, that's a really good question. Absolutely. I would say this, if you have an accountant or if you just want to have an accountant look at your financial situation, particularly around your taxes, I think it could help. And the reason it could is because lenders are going to focus on certain things, say on a tax return. And they're going to say, an accountant could say, well, we could actually count this number here, count that number there, and help adjust and make sure that the lender is looking at things in the most favorable way possible. So yes, I think that's a really good question. Thank you for asking it. Next question, can a buyer have an appraisal done before making an offer? That's a really good question. I've not seen that occur. However, one of the things that is publicly available is the city that you live in or the county you live in. They have an appraised value on just about every home, and it's because they collect property taxes. Now, those appraisals aren't probably I wouldn't take that as gospel, frankly. And there's a few reasons why, and probably outside the scope of this conversation. Here's what I'll tell you. If you're working with a realtor and there's a house that you really want to know more about and you think this is the house that I'd like to write an offer on, they should and could put together a essentially an appraisal, a comparative market analysis based on that property. What they're going to look at are homes that have sold that are very similar around it over the past 6 months or so. And they're going to say, based on everything I'm seeing, this is where I think this house is valued. So that's a really good question. And yes, essentially, I think having some information to that effect going into an offer makes nothing but sense. Thank you for the questions. That's excellent. I appreciate that. All right. So let's see. Oh, one other quick thing I was going to say related to costs. You see this there at the bottom of the slide. As a buyer, you rarely, if ever, will pay your realtor. The reason that is because historically, sellers are sellers are compelled to pay not only their representative, but also the buyer's representative. The reason is simply because as a buyer, you're buying a house. You don't have cash to pay all these different things. As a seller, it makes sense for you to offer some sort of cooperating broker compensation just because you want enough people to come see your house to write you a great offer. So if I'm working with you as a realtor, you can rest assured I'm here to help you. You don't owe me a thing. So just to put your mind at ease there. The last key that I want to talk about are programs. So probably the biggest question I get is what is out there to help a first-time home buyer? Like I'm new, I don't have the money for a down payment. What's out there, or how can I be supported in this? So I want to talk a little bit about some of the things out there and how they can help you out. So talking about the FHA, you hear about FHA loans a lot. Just quickly, the FHA is the Federal Housing Authority. It was developed during the Great Depression, and it was put in place to help sort of stabilize the housing market. And through today, basically what it does is it insures lenders who offer loans to people who aren't quite as well qualified. So maybe your credit score is a little bit lower, or you don't have as much for a down payment. The federal government says to the banks, if you loan this person, we will help insure that so that you can feel comfortable making that loan. So when you hear FHA loan, it just means that it's a government-backed loan and it helps you. It's used quite a bit. And so it can really help you out. Here's the ways it can. 3.5% down. That's a big deal. So that again takes a down payment and makes it much more manageable. You don't have to qualify with a much higher credit score. It's just easier to qualify. So you don't need to know that this is the loan you want. When you talk to your lender, they might say, here's the best option for you. And this is what's going to get you your lowest monthly payment. But an FHA loan is a great tool to use. So conventional loans, you hear Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, those are terms that I never fully grasped until I got into the industry. But essentially, these are loans that are traded on an open market. And again, probably outside the scope of this conversation, but they allow people to put 3% down, as low as 3% down. And you probably have to have a little bit better credit to get a conventional loan. And over time, you're going to pay less in interest. An FHA loan, lenders will charge probably a little bit higher interest just because it's a little bit more risky. But if you can qualify for a conventional loan, it'll save you money over time. The other thing you hear a lot about is refinancing. So something I highly recommend, you can get a loan, and then if a few years later, there's a better loan product out there for you, you can refinance and it save a lot of money on your monthly payments. Again, you do not need to be an expert in this. There are people out there, mortgage lenders, realtors, that can help coach you through this and just make sure that you get into the best position possible when it comes to getting a loan for a house. All right, so this information is for the folks that are more Colorado based. However, I will say that lots of different states have programs in place to help with home buying. Colorado, it's hard to buy a home here, right? Like home values are expensive. So the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority, or CHAFA is what it's called, has some really cool programs. You have to meet certain requirements relative to your credit score. There's income limits, things like that. Uh, and you have to take some education. But if you qualify, you can get either a down payment grant, which is basically free money. The state of Colorado helps you to a certain degree with your down payment, and you do not owe it back. It's incredible. They also can partner with your mortgage lender and give you essentially a second mortgage that really limits how much you need to pay out of your own pocket. There are a few things that it impacts down the line, but it's an incredible tool. I just helped a couple buy a property in Loveland, and it was a standalone residential house, $475,000, and they worked with a great lender that I know. They utilized the CHAFA program, and they bought it for $1,000 down, and their monthly payment is around $3,000, and it's incredible. I've never seen anything like it. It was fun to see that actually in effect. But they used $1,000 to buy a home here in Northern Colorado. It's incredible. Again, this is all within reach. And really all they did was they connected with the lender and a realtor that hopefully guided them the right way. All right, let's see. And like I said, if you're not in the state, if you're not in Colorado, check it out. There are things likely available at the state level that can really help you out. And the other thing I'd guide you towards, there are a lot of things locally and maybe through your employer that will allow you to take advantage of some great things. So, for instance, Colorado State University, they have a housing partner program. Realtors offer money back to help a buyer buy a house. There are lenders that do great rates, things like that. In fact, Canvas Credit Union is a big part of that, and offer employees at CSU discount on their interest rate on their mortgage. So don't sleep on local things either. Use AI. Like go to ChatGPT and say, hey, I live here. What are some options for me? And I bet you'll be surprised on some of the things that come back that can really help you out. Yeah, and again, you'll have a realtor, you'll have a lender that can help guide you toward these opportunities. So you're not alone in the process at all. So just breaking it down again. So here are some different programs that are available to just about anybody, and who it helps, how it can help. Just really useful information and pretty accessible. You can find all this stuff pretty easily. The last thing I wanted to touch on is just the home buying team. So I was also, I remember, confused about, well, who is involved? Who do I need to connect with? So here are sort of the four groups that I think are most important to have an understanding of. Obviously, a realtor. So this is the person you're working with to identify the homes that work for you, coach you through the process, write the offers for you, negotiate on your behalf, and that sort of thing. We talked a lot about a lender. I'm no lender, I'm no expert, but there are some great people out there, and they give you a crystal clear idea of how they can help you in the best way possible. So that'll be the realtor and the lender are two big parts of the team you'll be working with. The title company, you hear about title company. When you go under contract to buy a house, there's a lot of information kind of going back and forth. And then when you go to closing, that big stack of papers I was telling you about, that's all organized by the title company. They make sure that everything gets filed with the county. They make sure that the deed of trust, that the home passes to you in your name, and they just make sure that everything is squared away. So another reason why you don't have to be an expert and you don't have to know everything. They take care of a lot of that for you. And then the inspection. So when you buy a house, you want to have it thoroughly inspected. It's a standard practice. Your realtor will help you coordinate that, and you will find it very valuable. You will be amazed at some of the things an inspector will find in a home that's being sold. I've got some wild stories, but anyway, not to scare you, but it's great because I've actually personally gotten out of a deal because after the inspection, I realized there was something wrong with like the sewer line on this house that would have cost thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to rectify. So without having that in place, I could have been in big trouble. So there's so many ways that people can help you out throughout the process. And it looks like we have a question. Let's see. How do you recommend navigating the process when realtors have specific lenders they work with, especially if you're wanting to find the best offer? Excellent, excellent question. There are a lot of rules around lending, and as a realtor, I am in no way legally able to steer you towards a particular lender. You, as the consumer, get to work with any lender you want. In fact, if you go to talk to a lender and they try to, put pressure on you to work with them exclusively, might not be the lender for you. So if you're working with a realtor and they say have to work with this lender legally, that's not correct. You should be wary of that. There's one exception, and it's not necessarily an exception, but something to keep in mind. Here in Northern Colorado, there's a lot of development happening, right? So there's new build homes everywhere. If you wanted to go and talk to someone about buying a new home, the builders have a preferred lender they often work with, and they might say, if you work with our lender, we'll give you a 4% interest rate, and we'll give you $25,000 off the cost of the house. That's legal. They can do that, and it's usually worth it. I just helped a few folks go under contract on a new house in the Bloom neighborhood in Fort Collins, and they got $40,000 basically off the cost of the house only because they used a certain lender. So new builds can be a good option for that reason, but don't ever feel pressure to connect with a lender just because a realtor says this is my person. Great question. I'm glad you asked it. Like I said, I wanted to keep that extremely high level. I felt like I just talked quite a bit, but I appreciated the questions. Honestly, my biggest takeaway is that getting a house, even if it's here in Northern Colorado, is absolutely within reach. I was able to do it. I've helped countless people do it. And so if you have any questions, I really hope you will reach out. Happy to answer any questions you might have that come up after the fact. I love helping people. This is an important part of people's lives, and I feel honored to be a small part of it. So thank you so much for just taking a little bit of time today. I know that was quick, but I hope that you feel a little bit more, I guess, knowledgeable about the process and things to think about, and knowing that you don't have to be the expert. You just have to be willing to step up and talk to the experts about how you can get involved and maybe purchase a home. Okay, it looks like, could you share some resources for finding lenders and realtors? Yes, absolutely. So one place, honestly, I would recommend looking for realtors. Zillow's not a bad place to start. There are a lot of people who get reviewed, that sort of thing. You can definitely tell pretty easily how experienced a realtor is on their Zillow profile. Outside of that, in Colorado, I would recommend a certain website. It's called coloproperty.com. It's directly tied into the multiple listing service for Northern Colorado. So it is the most up-to-date for home availability. And it also gives you a good idea of who's a good realtor out there. As far as lenders, I'm not a lender, so I don't want to get out of my lane, but I would actually, if I was looking for a lender that I wanted to work with, I would just probably start on Google. I know that sounds cheesy and maybe like a cop-out, but honestly, you can probably find great reviews and get a good idea of who might be a good lender. Or, I don't know. I mean, as a realtor, I probably know 50 lenders. I trust and recommend 3. And so if you trust somebody in the business, ask them. They'll tell you. You're not obligated to work with any lender. And here's the other last thing I'll tell you about that. Vibe matters. When you're working with a realtor or working with a lender, make sure you vibe with them. Make sure that you can connect, that you don't feel pressure, that you believe that they know what they're doing and that they have your best interest in mind. And really, that's the way that I've gone about it personally. But yeah, that's how I'd go about it. Okay. Oh yeah, there we go. Thank you for that link. I appreciate it. Well, Thank you so much. Seriously, I appreciate the time and attention. And again, I know that this was probably pretty quick, and the sound of my voice is starting to wear me out. But I really do appreciate you all tuning in and taking some time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Doug. If any of you have any questions in these last couple of minutes, feel free to throw them in while I'm closing us out, and then we can kind of pop them up there. But I did just want to let you know that after this event, in a couple hours or so, you will get an email from the Alumni Association that has Doug's email, that has our resources at Canvas Credit Union if you want to go that route. That has supplemental information for you, that has the link to these slides, all the things. So you will be able to get all of that info. The links that Doug mentioned earlier, too, that we'll make sure that those are in there as well. So thank you again to everyone for joining us. If you have questions, feel free to throw that in. We'll hang out for just a little bit longer. But if you missed something or you need to watch the recording, again, those slides will be sent out to you later today. But this recording will actually be available right after we end this broadcast. So you can just refresh your page and go back and listen to anything that you need clarification on. If you have any questions, though, again, never hesitate to reach out to your friends at the Alumni Association, to your friends at Canvas Credit Union, to your fellow alum, Doug. Everyone is able to help and find that path or that connection that you may need or be looking for. So I don't see any other questions. To round us out, I did have a question that was emailed to me, which I think is really fun. But
Mhm.
Doug, the final question for today is, what is your favorite part or favorite story about being a realtor that you've experienced in the past couple of years?
Ooh, that's a good one. Um, wow. Well, I don't know. There's funny stuff and there's like heartfelt stuff. There's all kinds of stuff. I would say, honestly, the one that kind of comes to mind is I've done. Let's go back to last year. Last year, I did my first home that I sold that was over $1 million, which was crazy to me. Like it's nuts, but it was a beautiful home, right? But that's not what I was most proud of. The home that I was most proud of, and the job that was most well done, was I helped someone buy and then sell a mobile home, and it was somebody who obviously didn't have a lot of money, but wanted to stop paying rent, that sort of thing. And it was a kind of a wild process, but we did it. And on the sales side, um, we helped them in a very creative way, and I worked hard, and it all came together, and everyone was happy. So that was the deal I was actually happiest about all year long. It was excellent. Outside of that, there's always funny, crazy stuff that happens, but well, I'll go with that. It was touching.
That's awesome. And what a great
Mhm.
way to end the program. Again, everyone, if you want to connect with us, don't hesitate to reach out. My email's in the comments. You can respond to the email when you get it later today, and we'll make sure that you're connected to the right people. But with that, have a wonderful rest of your day, everybody. Thank you, Doug, and go Rams.